Good morning, good morning. Uh, My name is Daryl Houck Jr. Make sure we put the junior in there because you'll see senior ain't the best of people. Coming to you from beautiful Pine Top, Arizona. A little bit of snow on the ground from a few days ago. I figured a little bit of beauty in the background might help with hearing the story. Seems like everybody or pretty close to everybody on this channel has experienced some pretty intense trauma, so it's nice to add a little bit of beauty to I don't know, all the pain, the scars. You can check me out on DarrellHouckJr.com. DarrellHouckJr.com. You can also look me up on Amazon. I did put a book out with a little bit more in-depth of everything I'm going to tell you. If you just feel like you need to relate to somebody. Just trying to do what I could to help others, and I'm actually trying to get to a spot in my life where I can use my story and travel around and talk to kids and foster kids, abused kids, kids dealing with drug addiction, young adults even, and just try to take the story and do some good with it. I guess my story really started probably when I was 3, but even as early as my birth. Of course, I don't remember it, but my siblings do, and even when I was born, my dad had disowned me, saying I was too ugly to be his. A baby in the hospital. So that was the beginning. I'd say beginning of the end, but my story's not over. It's just beginning. So, 3 years old. My parents had divorced when I was a baby, but at 3 years old is when we started to go live with him. And my oldest sister had already been out there with him, so she had already started dealing with some stuff. But at 3, we started spending more and more time out there in West Virginia. And it got to the point where we were out there for the school years and in Arizona with my mom and grandparents during the summer. So I don't know how long it took. I was very little, but I think the physical kicked in far before any of the sexual. And while I'm thinking about it, before we even go any farther, let me tell you there will be tons of trigger warnings in this. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, drug addiction, tons of bad decisions. So just if you're not at the place yet where you're able to hear things of that nature, please come back when you are. There's nothing wrong with it. We all have our own journeys. We all heal in our own time. Just know that if you're still struggling, or if you're trying to get to that point in your life, it's possible. And you can see from the numerous people on this channel that healing is possible. And just have faith. You know you can do it. Love yourself, and the more you can let go and the more you can forgive, it truly is for your own good. You don't forgive them for their sake, you forgive them for your sake. And it sounds selfish, but I thought it was until I experienced it and figured out what it was all about. So if you're not ready to hear the story yet, it's okay. Please come back and check it out when you are. And I hope the best for you. And just know healing is possible. And it's a day at a time, and don't beat yourself up if you're not there yet. So, once the abuse kicked in, probably 3, 4, the physical, um, it was a lot of physical and psychological. Just you feel like you can't do anything right, and you walk on eggshells all the time, and be beat for whatever reason. Just you be in a bad mood, and it was it wasn't a spank on the butt. It was you're getting hit wherever you get hit, and if you cry, it's just going to keep going. So it went on for a long time. I was a little kid. So eventually, the sexual kicked in. There was a stepmother that came into the picture, and it was two peas in a pod. They were meant for each other in every way, and it was not a good thing. It was evil on evil on evil. So I went through a lot of sexual abuse between the two of them. My stepmother used to walk me to school in the morning, and we'd get like halfway there, turn around, and we'd have to go back to the house, and I'd have to strip naked and sit on the chair in the kitchen and perform whatever act I was told to do, totally naked, 5, 6 years old, and she'd be there taking pictures and participating off and on. And the same things would go on with my dad. We would he used to do a lot of flea markets and stuff, and we'd go home and get cleaned up in shifts. If it was a good day, we'd get to go out to eat, which was something super special because a lot of times we didn't even have food. So we'd go back and get ready in shifts, and whoever he picked to go with him was his basically sex toy of the day, whether it was me or my sisters, or so we'd have to go back and shower and perform oral sex on him, or masturbate, or whatever we're being told to do, and that continued off and on for years, along with the physical. And there were a few good times. I can't say it was like hell every single day, but you live in hell every single day because you don't know when those good days are going to be. There's far more bad than good, and you just get to where you expect there not to be any good days. So it's really nice when it does happen, whether it was like a Christmas or birthday. And the weirdest thing would be when I was sick. It was like a day off. It was the craziest thing. If I ever got sick, which was really rare, and I wish I would have been smarter back then because I would have been sick a lot more often. It was like a day off. Like you'd sit in bed and watch cartoons, and they'd bring you soup, and like these are the same people that are beating the hell out of you on a daily basis and molesting you and just totally screwed up stuff. And like, but then you get sick, and it's like you're an actual kid for once. It's like you're actually being taken care of. So all of that went on for years. Eventually, my oldest sister ran away and ran back to Arizona and told them. And I think they kind of knew what was going on because they knew how my dad was. But once my sister went out there and confirmed it, things changed. We went back out there for the summer, and we never went back to my dad and the evil stepmother. But that was not the end of the story. So we had stayed, me and my middle sibling had stayed with my mom for a few months, and um, she was doing her own thing, and we were not part of it. So me and my middle sibling ended up in a group home in Safford, Arizona. 8 years old. This was my first of many, many homes to come. Um, and it wasn't really a bad thing for me. Like, I was still young. My middle sibling was approaching her teens, so it was a bit harder for her. It was kind of like a um, I can't think of the word, but it was a drastic change. It was a super religious, really small town in Arizona. Not a lot going on other than churches. We went to the school at the church, and the group home was run by the pastor of the church, so everything was super strict. Um, but it was like one of those old time towns. You could just run and play and nothing to worry about. And so I was kind of enjoying it. And I had a lot of strong males around me that weren't beating the shit out of me and weren't molesting me, you know what I mean, in the beginning. So it was nice. Got to do boy stuff. I got to play in the dirt and ride skateboards and bicycles and little motorbike, you know. So um, it was probably really good for me, and it was probably the total opposite for my middle sibling. Um, and that's fine. After everything we went through, um, I don't have any anger or malice or anything towards her for um, eventually running away. Um, because I can only imagine if I was her age, I probably would have been even worse. Because I know how I was at her age. So, um, rewind about, I don't know, probably 6 months after we got there. I was there a total of 2 years, but probably 6 months after I got there, uh, the janitor of the church had started molesting me. We used to go over. He'd have me over on the night at night on the weekends, stay the night, watch movies, and I don't know. I don't know. 2020's hindsight. Um, so looking back, I don't know how they couldn't tell, but um, it was no big deal. Like I want to go stay at Clay's for the weekend or the night or whatever. Okay, you know. Um, but we would end up watching porn movies, and he'd have me in the bathroom peeing on him, and him peeing on me, and masturbating, and um, it went on for a good year at least. Um, but as I mentioned, my sister had run away and went back to my mom's, and once my sister left, I started acting out because I didn't want to be without my sister. Um, I was still pretty young at that time. I was like 10 years old. I had never been away from all of my family at once. I was used to bouncing back and forth between them, but at this point, I was by myself. Um, so I had started acting out and eventually acted up enough to get kicked out. And I went to my mom's. My middle sibling was already there. My oldest sibling was bouncing around group homes and probably pretty close to prison by this point. Um, so we didn't get a whole lot of time with her at all. Like, I might have seen her twice the whole time. So I ended up going to my mom's. And after a couple of weeks of being at my mom's, they actually came to Tucson. It was 3-4 hour drive, whatever. They came to Tucson and asked me, because apparently this guy's been doing it to other kids, and somebody finally said something. So they actually came and asked me about it, and I totally denied all of it. Um, because what happens is, that's the person that's being nice to you. That's the person that's buying stuff for you. That's the person looking out for you. He used to make food and stuff for the school kids during the day, and like he'd give me like grilled cheeses for free, and you know what I mean. So it's like, well, it's totally conflicting in your head, because it's like it doesn't feel good being molested and beaten and stuff, but then at the same time it's like, but these are the people that love you, you know what I mean? These are the people showing you attention or caring about you. So it's very complex process in your brain. So I denied it all. Luckily there were other kids that spoke up, and he ended up going to jail. And from what I heard, he died there. So at least nobody else was hurt, but he had actually adopted a kid that he was raising, a boy a little bit older than me at that point. And he had been, Lord knows what he went through. So he ended up where he was supposed to go. You know, he ended up, nobody shed a tear over him going to jail and breathing his last breath there. Let's just say that. So this point, I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm getting ready to transition to an 11-year-old. And during the few months that I spent with my mom, you know, I had my 11th birthday, and we had a falling out, and I had my grandfather. I'd always been super, super close with my grandfather. You know, he was like my person, even when I was little. And he had given me this freaking clock, radio, phone, like 3-in-1, 4-in-1 thing or whatever, and I used to listen to the radio on it. And also, you know, it was a phone, so. And she had taken it from me to ground me, probably for getting in trouble at school. I fought a lot in school. I never adjusted well to anything. That's never here nor there. We got into it over something to do with the phone. She tried to take it to me, and I flipped. Like, I flipped out. You weren't taking it from me. My grandpa gave me that, you know what I mean? And I attacked her, and that was that. Like, I was on a plane back to my dad's. She called my dad and said, hey, he's going to be at the airport such and such time. Be there or don't. And that was that. And my grandfather took me to the airport, and you could see how bad it broke him, and the look on his face. And there's only one other time I experienced that look, and we'll get to that. So I went back to my dad's. 11 years old. And to this day, I've never been more scared in my life than I was during that period. Just absolutely terrified. And I was only with him for a couple weeks. Thank God, because who knows what I was in store for. Those 2 weeks, I think I showered once, because I was so scared he was going to come in the bathroom. If I could sense him getting mad at all, I'd crawl under the bed and hide. We were in a little apartment right behind McDonald's, And I remember it because I ended up working right across the street about 7 years later. And it was the weirdest thing. But my sister, by that point, was in prison in West Virginia. My oldest sister. And she called and called and called and called social services to get me out of there. And she would not stop. I found out later on, like, it wasn't like she picked up the phone and said da 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 da, and they came and got me. No, like, she made sure somebody heard her and somebody listened. And they came to my school, interviewed me for a few hours, and that was that. Like, they took me right then and there. They took me to a foster home, 11 years old. And mind you, I'd already been in the group home for 2 or 3 years prior, from 8 on. So often I'll say, you know, I was in foster care from 8 to 18. And that includes that first group home, even though I wasn't a ward of the state at that point. I went into my first full-fledged foster home, no siblings, no contact, 3,500 miles away from my family, and became a ward of the state of Maryland permanently. And I spent the rest of my youth bouncing around foster care. But it didn't end there. I got kicked out of my first home for calling my foster dad a son of a bitch. And that was after being there for a year or two. We got in an argument. I called him son of a bitch, and he grabbed me up and put me against the fucking door, hand around my throat, and that was that. I was kicked out, period. And that became the rest of my youth. I'd spend a few months somewhere and I'd be kicked out. And it would just repeat and repeat and repeat. And then I went to another group home in Hancock, Maryland, where eventually the kids, the people that ran it, had their own children there. And it was like this little farm thing, and like we grew our own food and whatnot, and they were vegetarians, and that was tough as a kid. But their children, their biological children, actually started doing stuff to me. Like they were curious or experimenting or whatever, and I was the one that, I don't know, I think at some point I just became an easy target because I was so used to it. So anybody that would read my file, anybody that knew my background, like, you know what I mean, like, so I actually didn't last long there anyway. I ended up getting kicked out of there. Bounced around a little bit more. At 13, I landed somewhere where I actually enjoyed. I always enjoyed my group homes and institutions better than foster homes. I always felt like I was intruding on people in foster care, like an outsider, you know, like they have their family, I'm just an outsider. I don't, you know what I mean, like I'm not accepted. And there's things done to make you feel this way, but it's also probably what every single foster kid goes through, going into strange surroundings, and if the attempt is not made, if the effort's not put forth to make them part of the home, they're just naturally going to feel like an outsider. You know, like there's a lot of work that probably has to go into it. I never experienced it. So I ended up landing in another home at 13 in Williamsport, right down the road from where I was with my dad last. I was in a group home. It was a great place as far as other kids around you. Very athletic. We had our own gym. It was pretty strict, but like if you did what you needed to do, it wasn't bad at all. And I don't know how long I was there. I bonded really closely with my roommate. We were the same age, like birthdays a couple days apart. Uh, we were both super fast. We were like the fastest kids in the school. Um, we were really competitive with each other. Everything we, you know, it was like a brother. Absolutely, like probably the closest thing I've ever had to a brother. Um, but eventually, one of the staff started coming in the room late at night after everybody was asleep, and he'd lay down next to me and start putting his hands down his pants or my pants and vice versa, and um, just like fondling and masturbating and stuff. And it went on for months. It didn't escalate real bad. Like that was pretty much the worst of it. It was just continuous. It wasn't nothing super severe, and it wasn't nothing near what I had experienced in the past. But after a few months, like I finally, like, I didn't have the courage to go and tell. I didn't, like, you feel like nobody will believe you. So I actually talked to my roommate and told him what was going on. So we came up with a plan that he would stay up that night and act like he's sleeping, but he would stay awake to be a witness. And then the next day we went down to the office. Like that's how consistent it was, and like it took us one night to put the plan into place, and the next day we were at the office. You know what I mean? Like it was almost every night thing when he worked. So we went to the office, and he was my backup. He's actually the one that told. Like I was in my little box, and we went down to the therapist lady, and he told him what was going on, and I verified it, and the guy was fired. There's a little article about this big in the Williamsport paper saying that he had been fired, and there wasn't details or nothing, and that was that. Like it was all pushed under the rug, and that was the extent of it. And a few months later, there was a plan to run away, and I ran away with the kids that rent, and that was the end of my stay there. I was kicked out after that. So just before this place, I started bouncing in and out of psych wards, putting me on medications and stuff. When I left that place, I actually went to a psych ward for about 6 months for anger, and they doped me up on so many medications, and I think I was starting to get really, really depressed a lot. So I spent 6 months there, finally processed out. Went to a home in Dundalk, Maryland, a foster home, and I stayed for a year or two there. And by the way, being molested by the staff guy, that was the end of the abuse in my life. So like 3 to 13 was the abuse, the physical, the sexual, etc., etc. At 13, I kind of picked up the torch myself. Once I got out of the psych ward and went into the foster home just outside of Baltimore, started going to regular public school again. And this is where I started to experiment with drugs. My first gateway drug was LSD. And the day I took it in high school, like it was a freaky day. And from there on, for the last 30 years, I've had this love affair with drugs, this love-hate relationship, this hate-hate relationship. But we'll get more into that. But the abuse had stopped. Of course, I continued bouncing around foster homes, group homes, etc., etc., until I was 18 and emancipated. When I got out of the system at 18, like I was so fed up with people telling me what to do, and like I was just done. And I totally screwed everything up because I could have went to school for free. I could have had like help with an apartment, like then paying half my rent and this and that. And I found like I am so hard-headed and cut my nose off to spite my face. You know what I mean? That type. And I said, screw it. Told them to emancipate me, and that was that. And from there until about 2.5 years ago, I've been on and off drugs. I'll do really well for a long time, and then it just becomes too much. Like I take too much crap. I don't let anything out. I'm not assertive. Like I just keep taking it, and then I'm so freaking miserable that I feel like I need a break, and I pick it back up again, and once I pick it up, no matter how long I've been clean, once I pick it up, you can bet your ass that it's going to be a year before you see me again. I think the shortest was ever like 9 months, but pretty much it's going to be a year or two before you see me again, and I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be 100 pounds lighter than what I am. Not have anything. Your stereotypical homeless drug addict. A couple years ago, I went in the military for a little bit. And once I got out of that, I started in the oil field about 15 years ago. And met my ex-wife, and she's an angel in herself. Like, she brought me so far because I was freaking crazy at that point. Didn't trust anybody. Just swear she was cheating on me every chance she got, and I'd be on base in New Jersey and she lived in Arkansas, and I'd be calling in the middle of the night, like just absolutely crazy. And I don't know why she stuck it out with me, but let me tell you what, she's a saint, and she really calmed me down a lot over the years that we were together. So at this point, I was clean for about 6-7 years, and I relapsed a couple times while we were together, and then I got clean again for about 7 years. And in this 7 years, We got a divorce. I was bouncing around the oil field, super frustrated because I've spent my whole life just wanting to help people and use my story to help kids. I've been like, I just want to help people, you know. And every day that I spend not doing that is like another nail in my coffin. It's like a ticking time bomb. Because I'm absolutely miserable not being able to help people. And I've spent the last few years studying some speaker programs. I think the only thing holding me back is the lack of confidence. Like, I grew up an absolutely destroyed kid, you know? And I know there's a lot of them out there. And a lot of times they just need to know that they can make it through. So I've been studying to be a speaker and stuff, and I put a book out. I wrote a book. Just I don't know, to give people somebody to relate to, or somebody to be encouraged by. And I just want people to know that what they're going through isn't the end of them, you know, and in fact it can be the beginning of them. Between the strength they develop and the knowledge they gain and the ability to relate to people and understand people. But I actually, a few years ago, I was working in the oil field, and I was having a shitty day, and I hate the oil field as it is, you know, so I wasn't happy, and I got stuck in line waiting at a facility to load some sand, and I was in line, like all the lines next to me were moving. I was stuck. Like my lane was broke down. And I was there for like 4 hours. But the most incredible thing happened. I was messaging with my dad. For the first time in years. A few years prior, I'd try to go through the process of forgiving him and letting it go or whatever, and I did it because I knew that's what I was supposed to do. But I guess I didn't do it right, because this day was totally different. So I was stuck in line. I'm messaging him, and I got the radio playing, and there's some other things in my life that everything just kind of fell into place for me to be open and experience the awesomeness of letting go, like truly letting go, truly forgiving. And you know, I told him, and it's in the book, and I have it saved in a couple places, the conversation. And you know what took place over a few minutes. The next couple days I spent crying. I don't know, like I was 1,000,000 pounds lighter. Everything around me that I see as ugly I found beauty in it. There's not a lot of beauty in the oil field. There's a lot of pump jacks and desert, and but I know. And for 2 days, I had tear coming out of just one corner of my eye for 2 days straight. Like my eyes were so raw from wiping them because it just kept going. Um, and that moment, I finally understood how much I was holding on to. Um, like you don't know, like you could feel like you're fine, or you don't know how much you're holding on to until you let it go, until you get to experience something else. You don't know how bad something sucks until you get to experience something good. You don't know how good something is until you experience something bad. You know what I mean? I didn't know how much I was holding on to until that day. And I hope by telling my story, I hope by relating to people that they're able to do the same thing, that they're able to get to a place and just let it all go. Um, I know during the days that you're in it, it feels like that's all there is, you know, like, and it feels like there's never going to be anything else. Like life just sucks, and that's just all there is. But it's not. There's so much more. And if you feel like you can't get to that day, like there's no point in getting to that day, listen to what I'm telling you. It gets better. It's not going to suck forever. Solving a temporary problem with a permanent solution. And you've probably heard that term before. Let me tell you, I understand it. Don't do something today because it won't be the same eventually. It will get better eventually. So I left a lot of stuff out. But like I said, like if anybody wants to know more, they can go to my website, DarylHouckJr.com. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I believe my Instagram's Daryl.HouckJR2222 at, or however it's done. I don't know. I'm still learning. But I'd love to build something to where as a unit we can just keep picking people up. You know, we can just build one by one by one and just exponentially pick our people up. Pick up the people that are just really getting beat down by whatever aspect of life. Because I know there's a lot more of me out there. I know there's a lot of kids. And I was that kid. Reach one, teach one thing, you know. Let's reach them all because they need us. All the survivors, they need us so that they know there's a tomorrow. Today isn't forever. Today is not going to last forever. So, thank you all for listening. Hopefully, the story helped somebody. I know guys are less likely to talk about this. But hey, I'm here. if you have another story and you're scared to tell it and you're a dude, I like to say, bro, like, we're people too. We're human beings. We're allowed to feel. Shutting it down, blocking it off isn't gonna take it away. You know what I mean? So, thank y'all for listening. Look me up, find me. If there's something I can do, or if you just want to talk or something, need somebody to listen. Thank y'all for listening. Beautiful Pine Top, Arizona. It's like 36 degrees. Loving it.